The knock came at 2:13 a.m. Soft, barely audible. 3 taps, then silence. Mira sat bolt upright in bed, her heart already thudding before her brain caught up. She blinked toward the bedroom window, but the thick night pressed against it like a blanket soaked in ink. The knock hadn't come from there. It was downstairs. Front door, maybe. She strained to listen. Nothing. She lived alone. Had for almost 6 years. A modest 2-story house, inherited from her grandmother, nestled at the edge of a sleepy suburb where streetlights were spaced just far enough apart to leave gaps of darkness between. It was the kind of place people described as safe, quiet, predictable. But at 2:13 in the morning, no place felt safe. She told herself it was probably the wind, a tree branch, maybe a raccoon again. Then it came again. 3 taps. Not rushed, not panicked. Polite, almost. Like someone who knew she was inside. Someone who expected her to answer. She slipped out of bed, bare feet cold against the wood floor. No need for slippers. This wasn't going to take long. She'd check the camera on the porch. Go back to bed. Probably nothing. The hallway stretched long and dark. She didn't turn on the lights. Didn't want whoever it was to know she was awake. Instead, she tiptoed down the stairs, each creak of the old steps loud enough to make her cringe. At the bottom, she reached for her phone on the charging stand near the front door. Unlocked it. Opened the security app. Her porch camera fed the image through in black and white. No one was there. Her breath caught. She pinched the screen. Zoomed in. Nothing. The porch light hadn't even triggered. She frowned. Maybe she'd imagined it. Then, knock, knock, knock. This time it came from the back of the house. She froze. Her mind played it back. Same rhythm. Same soft, deliberate taps. She turned slowly, like moving too fast might draw attention. No one could reach the back door without tripping the motion light by the garden. But that light hadn't gone on either. She walked through the kitchen, holding her breath, until she reached the door that led to the backyard. The window in the door was foggy with condensation. She wiped it with her sleeve. Empty. The garden was quiet. Still. Then the sound came again. Not a knock this time. A whisper. It was low, dry, like dead leaves scraping together. Mira. Her spine turned to ice. She took a step back. It was her name. Clearly. Soft, but not a dream. She heard it. Then something shifted in the corner of the garden. A shape in the shadows. She didn't wait. She locked the back door, flicked on every kitchen light, and backed away toward the hallway. Her pulse was screaming now. She grabbed the phone again. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled to the emergency contact. She paused. What would she say? Someone was whispering her name in the dark. There was no proof. The cameras showed nothing. The lights didn't trigger. And yet, Mira. It came from the window above the sink. She spun around. There, for the briefest moment, was a face. Right up against the glass. Not pressed, not distorted. Just watching. Then gone. She let out a strangled cry and stumbled backward, slamming into a chair. The lights flickered. Just once. Then again. All at once, the house felt wrong. Like the walls had shifted when she wasn't looking. Like it wasn't hers anymore. She bolted up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time, and locked herself in the bedroom. She shoved a chair under the handle, backed into the corner. Her breath came in short gasps. She called the police. The dispatcher answered quickly. Calm. Efficient. They said they'd send someone. Stay on the line, the woman said. Can you describe who you saw? Mira tried. White face. No gray. Hollow eyes. She wasn't sure. It hadn't looked entirely real. She was still on the call when the power went out. Silence! The phone cut to black. Her bedroom disappeared into shadow. Then she heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. But this time, it wasn't at the front door. It was at the bedroom door. 3 slow, deliberate taps. Mira didn't scream. She couldn't. She stared at the door. The handle twitched, not turning, just a little jolt, like someone was letting her know they were there. Then a whisper, close, right against the wood. Mira! She grabbed the lamp beside her and hurled it. It bounced off the door and shattered. The room stayed dark. Then came the sound of footsteps, but not retreating, descending, going back down the stairs. Slow, 1 step at a time. She didn't move for almost 10 minutes. Her breath was shallow. Every muscle in her body clenched like it was holding her skin together. Then, faintly, from downstairs, music, a lullaby, soft, old, off-key. It was coming from the living room, her grandmother's music box. She hadn't heard it in years. She didn't even know it still worked. It played for a full minute, then stopped, and the house was silent again. When the police finally arrived, they found her curled in the corner of her locked bedroom, lamp fragments across the floor, phone dead, and the back door wide open. They searched the house, found no signs of forced entry, no footprints, no damage. Just one thing, on the inside of the back door, smeared into the condensation of the window, was a single word, drawn with a fingertip. Home! Mira moved out 2 days later. Never came back. Neighbors said the house stood empty for a while after that. Until one night, the lights turned on by themselves, and someone reported hearing soft, polite knocking at 2:13 a.m. It was past midnight when Junaid's phone vibrated, pulling him away from the blue haze of his laptop screen. His apartment was silent, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint whoosh of a car passing on the street below. He checked the message. It was from his younger sister, Kira. Can you call me? Something weird's happening at home. That was odd. Kira was only 16, and their parents were out of town for the weekend, some distant wedding in Bahawaber. Junaid had offered to stay, but Hira had insisted she was fine. Now, his stomach tightened. He hit call. She answered after the first ring, voice hushed and shaky. Bye. Someone's in the bathroom. He sat up straighter. What do you mean someone's in the bathroom? Are you sure? I heard it. The door creaked. The light turned on by itself. I swear I didn't touch it. Kira, listen to me. Lock your door. Right now, I'll come over. I already did. But, bye, it's not just the light. I heard humming. The breath caught in Junaid's throat. Stay on the line. His mind raced. Her house, his childhood home, was a single-story place with creaky wooden floors and windows that didn't quite shut. He remembered the way sounds traveled oddly through those walls, how sometimes you could hear whispers in one room when no one was there. I'm leaving now, he said, grabbing his hoodie. Don't make a sound. Stay in your room. Keep the lights off. He didn't even hang up, just kept the call open in his pocket as he ran down the stairs of his apartment and into his car. The drive was a blur of red lights and empty streets. Kira didn't say much, just the occasional whisper. I think I hear footsteps. Now water's running. Bye, I'm scared. When he pulled into the driveway, the house looked normal. Lights off. Quiet. He approached the front door with caution. It was locked. He tapped on the window by Hira's room. Her pale face peeked through the curtain. She opened it for him in seconds. Come inside, she whispered. The bathroom light is still on. Junaid stepped in. The air was heavy, strangely warm despite the cool night outside. It smelled off, like mold and copper. He crept toward the hallway. The bathroom door was half open. Light bled through the crack. The humming had stopped. Hira, he said without turning, you didn't leave any tap running? No, I told you. He pushed the door open. The bathroom was empty, bright. The mirror was fogged as if someone had taken a hot shower moments ago. Drops of water glistened on the floor tiles. The faucet was running, ice cold. He turned it off. The drain gurgled. The toilet lid was closed, but he noticed something strange. A faint smudge on the porcelain, small, like a child's handprint. Wet, but it wasn't Iris. She hadn't even come in here. Stay back, he warned, suddenly unnerved. He knelt and opened the vanity under the sink. Nothing. Then he pulled the shower curtain aside. Empty. But the drain. Something about it looked odd. It was darker, as if shadow pooled inside. He turned off the light. The room went black. Silence. Kira, he said slowly. Did you see anything? Anyone? No, just heard it. The light turned on and the humming started. Male or female voice? She thought for a moment. Childlike. Junaid's mouth went dry. I'll sleep in the lounge. Keep your door locked tonight. He waited till Hira was back in bed, then lay on the old sofa, eyes open, heart still hammering. Around 3 a.m., he dozed off. A sound woke him. Faint. A click. The bathroom light. Again, he rose, breath shallow. The hallway stretched in front of him, dim and silent, except for the light spilling from the bathroom door. Then, humming. Not sweet or musical. Tuneless. Low, wrong. He didn't move. The humming stopped. Then the light snapped off. Junaid backed away slowly. His phone was on the coffee table. He picked it up, ready to dial the police, though what would he even say? That his bathroom had ghosts. Just then, a whisper behind him. Thigh! He turned. Hira was standing by her door, eyes wide, hands shaking. You're sleepwalking, he whispered. I didn't turn it on, she said. He blinked. She was in her nightgown, barefoot. Her feet were wet, soaked. There was water dripping from her sleeves. She looked down at herself in confusion. I didn't go in, I swear. She stopped mid-sentence, eyes locked on something behind him. He turned. Standing at the edge of the hallway, barely visible in the shadows, was a figure. Small. Still, a little girl. Soaked to the bone. Hair stuck to her cheeks. Head tilted. Eyes black. She smiled, then blinked out. Just gone. The air turned icy. Junaid grabbed Hira's arm and dragged her back into her room, slamming the door shut. He called their uncle, demanded to stay the rest of the night at his place. They left without packing. The next morning, Junaid returned to the house alone. The bathroom door was wide open. Inside, etched into the fog mirror, were 4 dripping words. She's not done yet. He stepped back and heard the faintest sound just beneath the silence. Water dripping, then humming, faint, from the drain. The rain had started just after midnight, thin at first, like mist blown from the sea, but it had thickened fast, beating against the windows of Miriam's trailer like thrown gravel. She didn't mind the weather. In fact, she preferred it. The sound of rain was easier to ignore than silence, and she'd grown used to the pounding over the past month. She lived alone now, ever since Paul had vanished without a trace. They said he'd left her. The police found no signs of a struggle, no blood, no break-in. His car was gone. His clothes, his toothbrush, all of it gone by morning. But Miriam knew better. She had heard him scream. That was 4 weeks ago. Tonight, she was curled up in a thick hoodie on the ratty couch, clutching a chipped coffee mug filled with whiskey. The lights flickered now and then, as they always did when the wind picked up through the trees behind her place. The same trees Paul had walked toward the night he disappeared. She hadn't touched that patch of woods since. At 1:23 a.m., the power died completely. The silence that followed was vacuum sealed, thick, pressing against her skull. Her hand reached automatically for the flashlight she kept on the coffee table. She clicked it on, and a pale beam carved through the darkness like a scalpel. The beam quivered, not because of her hand, but because the door, the back one, was unlocked. She never left that door unlocked. She stood, heart dragging in her chest like a bad engine, and moved slowly toward the back of the trailer. The door was ajar by half an inch. Wind didn't open steel latches like that. Miriam. The whisper was low, muffled, but it wasn't in her head. She turned the flashlight toward the sound. It was coming from the pantry. Her throat tightened. That pantry was barely big enough to store a vacuum cleaner and a few shelves of soup cans. No one could fit in there. She took a step, then another. She wished the rain was louder. She wished anything was louder. Miriam, the whisper said again. She grabbed the doorknob and yanked it open. Nothing. Just soup cans and blackness. She slammed it shut and backed away. She didn't sleep that night. By morning, the power was back and the pantry was empty. She checked the latch on the back door. It was twisted slightly, as if someone had forced it open. She called the police again. They sent someone out, a fresh-faced deputy who looked like he barely remembered how to grow a beard. "Doesn't look like forced entry," he said. "What about the latch?" Miriam asked. He glanced at it, shrugged. "Could be old hardware." "You said you thought someone was in the pantry?" "No, I heard someone in the pantry." He gave her the look, the soft one, the one they use on widows or crazy people. "I'll file the report, ma'am. Keep your doors locked, okay?" She watched him drive away. When she turned back toward the trailer, something caught her eye in the trees. A shadow, no movement, just presence, like someone watching. That night, the whisper came again. Not from the pantry. This time, it was under the floorboards. She heard the crawlspace hatch creak open beneath the trailer. Her skin broke out in a sheet of goosebumps. She sat motionless on the couch, flashlight pointed at the carpet. No sound but the rain and her breath. Miriam, slower this time, like something tasting her name. She moved toward the kitchen drawer, pulled out the hammer she kept since Paul vanished. She waited. The crawlspace hatch creaked again, but this time it closed. Whatever was down there, it was coming back up. She didn't wait. She dropped to her knees, peeled up the rug, and yanked open the trapdoor. The light trembled in her grip. Nothing, just pipes and dirt and mildew. She waited there until dawn. By the third night, the rain had turned violent. Thunder slammed the sky like fists. She couldn't hear herself think. She didn't want to. She bolted every door, every window. She sprinkled salt around the doorframes, even though she didn't believe in that kind of thing. She just needed to do something. At 2:14 a.m., her phone lit up. A text. Unknown number. "Why did you leave me out there?" She stared at it. Her hands turned to ice. Another message. "I saw you watching from the window." She didn't reply. She powered the phone off and threw it across the room. It landed beside the fireplace and didn't move until the screen lit up again, even though it was off. A face. Not Paul's, but almost. It looked like him if you squinted, but stretched. Too wide. The mouth was wrong. The phone shut off by itself. She didn't sleep for the rest of the week. She stopped calling the police. She stopped trying to explain. Each night, the voice got closer. One night, it was in the bedroom. Another, it was in the hallway. Then it was breathing directly behind her as she washed dishes. She stopped turning around. On the 10th night, she woke to find Paul's boots in the living room. Mud and pine needles tracked through the trailer. She hadn't left her bed. "Miriam," the voice said, louder now, almost cheerful. "It's cold out there. Let me in." "I didn't lock the door," she whispered. "You can come in. You're already inside." "No." It said, "Not me, let Paul in." Her legs trembled. Her bladder let go. She didn't care. "What do you want?" she whispered. "You watched him die. You watched him." She did. She had. That night, 4 weeks ago, she'd seen the thing pull him into the trees. He didn't scream until his legs snapped. She hadn't moved, not an inch. Frozen in terror. "I couldn't move," she said aloud. "You chose not to." The lights came on, all at once. The house looked normal. No footprints, no boots, just silence and old furniture. She walked to the back door, opened it, stepped outside into the rain. They found her car parked 3 miles away the next morning. Keys still in the ignition. No one ever found her body. But sometimes, late at night, truckers passing through the Backwoods Road swear they see a woman standing alone at the tree line, watching, waiting. It started with a sound that didn't belong. Celia had just moved into the small, aging house 3 days earlier, something she found on a last-minute rental site for a steal. A temporary stay. She was between jobs, between lives, and frankly, she needed somewhere quiet to reset. The house was tucked away at the end of a gravel road, past groves of ash and cedar trees, surrounded by so much silence it felt like the world had forgotten about it. But on the third night, sometime past 2 a.m., she heard the unmistakable creak of a door opening. Inside the house. She sat up in bed, her ears straining. The house was old, sure, things shifted, expanded, grown, but this wasn't wood settling or pipes groaning. It was deliberate. Hinges. Movement. Then a soft thud. She grabbed her phone. No notifications. No power either. The battery icon showed 3%. Great. She swung her feet over the edge of the bed, the wooden floor cold against her skin. The hallway stretched out ahead like a dark throat. She didn't turn on the flashlight. Some small, ancient instinct told her not to announce herself. The sound had come from the far end of the hall, near what she remembered to be the linen closet. She crept forward, pressing her back to the wall, her fingers trailing along the plaster. When she reached the end of the hall, she frowned. There was a door there, but there wasn't supposed to be. She remembered it clearly. There had only been 3 doors: her bedroom, the guest room, and the bathroom. This fourth door, nestled between 2 existing ones, hadn't been there last night, or the night before. She touched the knob. It was cool, smooth, newer than the rest of the house. No paint chipping, no scuff marks. She turned it slowly. The door opened onto a small room, empty except for a single, child-sized wooden chair in the center. The light from the hallway barely touched the far corners. The floor was dusty, untouched, but the chair had marks in the dust around its legs, like it had been moved recently. And on the wall opposite the door, etched into the plaster, were words, carved with something sharp. "It's still watching." Celia stepped back. She shut the door, locked it, backed away. Her heart was doing strange, bird-like flips in her chest. That night, she slept with her door locked and her back to the wall. Her phone died at 3:04 a.m. By morning, she convinced herself it had just been exhaustion, stress. She didn't even remember renting the place clearly. It had been a flurry of desperation, a need to escape her ex, her job, her failed life in the city. Maybe she had overlooked the floor plan. She made coffee, went for a walk, tried to distract herself. But when she returned later that afternoon, the door was gone. She blinked. It was a blank wall again, as if the fourth door had never existed. She stood there for a long time, one hand on the cool plaster, trying to feel for any seam or groove. Nothing. That night, she stayed awake with a knife under her pillow. At 3:11 a.m., her phone, now fully charged, lit up on the nightstand. New airdrop request. From unknown. File. Image 0001. JPG. Her breath caught. She hadn't used AirDrop in months. There were no other devices nearby. No Wi-Fi enabled. No neighbors within a mile. She stared at the screen. Accepted. The image opened. It was dark, grainy. A photo of her hallway, taken from a low angle, like from the ground, just outside her bedroom. There, barely visible in the shadow beside the linen closet, was the outline of a figure. Thin, wrongly proportioned. Long arms, head slightly tilted. Watching her door. She dropped the phone. For the next 3 days, she tried to leave. She packed, drove halfway to town, only for the car's engine to stall and refuse to turn over. She waited 4 hours for roadside assistance. They never came. She walked back, found the front door wide open. Inside, everything smelled like lavender and rot. The fourth door was back. She didn't go near it. That night, she shoved furniture against her bedroom door. At exactly 3 a.m., her phone vibrated again. New voice memo received. Breath on. She played it. Hands trembling. It was 37 seconds of breathing. Harsh. Wet. Like someone with a ruined throat exhaling slowly, painfully, right into the mic. Then a whisper. You're not alone. She didn't sleep. In the morning, she tried the phone. Dead again. She opened the front door, determined to walk until she found someone, anyone. But the forest had changed. The gravel road was gone, replaced by overgrown grass and twisted trees that hadn't been there before. Even the angle of the sunlight felt wrong somehow. Cooler. Slanted like early evening, though it was barely past 10 a.m. The house didn't want her to leave. Back inside, the smell of rot was stronger. She covered her mouth with a towel. Every mirror in the house was fogged over, dripping from the inside. The fourth door was wide open. Inside, the child's chair had been overturned. The words on the wall were joined by new ones, etched deeper, more frantic. It's inside now. She stumbled back, almost tripping over her own feet. And then she saw them. Fingerprints. On the inside of her bedroom window. From the outside. She ran to the window, flung it open. Nothing but air. No ledge. Nothing below but a drop into the overgrown brush. That night, the knocking started. 3 soft raps at exactly 3:13 a.m. on the inside of her closet. She didn't move. It came again. Slower this time. Almost polite. Knock, knock, knock. Then a voice. Soft. Childlike. Can I come out now? Celia snapped. She screamed, threw open the closet door, knife in hand, only to find it empty. But behind the clothes, another door. Not the fourth one. This one was smaller. Crude. Carved directly into the wall like a makeshift tunnel. She could smell dirt, mold, something. Metallic. She didn't go in. She pushed the dresser in front of it, sat on the bed, held the knife, waited. Her phone vibrated again. New note. You already let me in. The next morning, the power was back. Her phone showed full charge. The road returned. Her car started. She didn't question it. She drove all the way back to the city. A week later, she got a call from the landlord, asking when she was returning to collect the rest of her things. Keep them, she said. Burn the house. The landlord paused. Miss, I'm confused. The house hasn't had a tenant in over 3 years. It's been boarded up since the fire. What fire? The one that started in the hallway, near the linen closet. No survivors. We had to tear out part of the wall. There was something strange behind it, like a room that wasn't supposed to be there. The line went dead. That night, in her city apartment, Celia found her phone had a new image. A photo of her closet, door slightly ajar, darkness just beyond it. He always left the basement light on. Every night for 33 years, Arthur did the same thing: lock the doors, switch off the hallway lights, check the stove twice, and leave the old yellow bulb burning in the basement. It wasn't fear. At least, that's what he told himself. It was just habit, a harmless one. Besides, the cat liked to sleep near the warmth of the old boiler, and it kept her calm. That's what he said when people asked. But there were no people anymore. Not since Eleanor died. It had been 7 weeks. Quiet ones. Arthur didn't mind the silence most days. He had his crossword puzzles, the kettle, and the ticking of the grandfather clock. But at night, when the wind whistled under the doors and the shadows slid across the ceiling, he began to wonder why he still left that basement light on. He didn't have a cat. He never did. It was 12:47 a.m. when he heard it again. The same sound as the night before, a single thud, soft, like something shifting against the concrete. Not falling, moving. He paused, kettle in hand, halfway through pouring water into his chipped blue mug. His fingers tightened slightly. The pipes, he reasoned. The boiler settling, or the wind. But he didn't move. Another thud. Closer. Arthur set the kettle down. The kitchen light flickered slightly, something it had never done before. The bulbs were new. He stood, breath caught in his throat, staring down the hallway toward the basement door. The light underneath it was still on. He thought of turning it off. Just this once. But something deep in his chest recoiled at the thought, like a reflex burned into him over years. He wouldn't open the door. That would be ridiculous. He was 74 years old. He had arthritis and a bad hip. He didn't chase ghosts. He sat back down, stirred the tea slowly. His hand trembled slightly, the spoon clinking unevenly against the mug. Then the knocking started. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Not from the front door, from below. Arthur stood. Every hair on his arm stood with him. The kettle steamed behind him, forgotten. The knocks came again. This time, 4, like a rhythm. Knock, 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 like it was answering him. He reached for the drawer beside the stove and took out the old flashlight he kept there. Not because he meant to go down, just because he didn't like standing in the dark. The beam trembled as he walked quietly down the hall, slippers dragging across the floor. The basement door stood perfectly still, the soft glow of the bulb casting a sickly yellow halo under it. The air was colder now. He pressed his ear against the wood. Silence! He waited, and then, the softest sound. Breathing. Not gasping, not groaning. Breathing. Deep, calm. Not his. Arthur stumbled back, breath hitching, knees suddenly weak. He hadn't imagined it. He knew the sound of lungs working. He'd sat with Eleanor every night through her final days, listening to every labored inhale. This was different. This was stronger. He wanted to run, call someone. But who? He hadn't spoken to anyone in a month. His phone barely worked, and he'd never been good with it anyway. So he stood, watching the light, listening. The breathing stopped. Then came the voice. Arthur, his name whispered like a prayer or a curse. His hand flew to the door handle before he even realized what he was doing. He yanked it open. Darkness. The light was gone. Just the steep staircase, now black as pitch, the air colder than it had any right to be. He fumbled with the flashlight, flicked it on, and shone it down. Nothing. No movement. No shape. No sound. But the stairs looked different, longer, as if they stretched deeper than they ever had. He took a step down, then another. The beam of the flashlight flicked just once, then stabilized. The concrete steps felt damp, sticky. He paused halfway. That's when he noticed it, the bulb, hanging from the ceiling by a thin cord, still warm, still intact. Unscrewed, Arthur turned back, ready to flee. The door slammed shut above him. He ran up, flashlight beam swinging wildly, but the handle wouldn't budge. He pounded on it, called out, but the wood swallowed his voice. Behind him, a sound began to rise. Shuffling, he turned. The light stuttered again. Something was at the bottom of the stairs, just at the edge of the beam. Not a figure exactly, but a mass. A shifting blur, like movement trapped in the shape of a person. And it was climbing. Slowly, one step at a time. Arthur backed against the door, fist slamming, flashlight trembling in his hand. "Let me out," he cried. "Help me, please." The thing stopped 3 steps from him and spoke again. "Arthur." He held the light steady. It flickered, once, twice. Then it blinked out. In the silence that followed, Arthur heard the voice again. Softer now. Closer. "You left me alone down here." The cold hit him like a wave. His knees buckled. Something touched his shoulder, cold, damp, heavy like wet rope. He screamed. Darkness swallowed the sound. When he awoke, he was lying at the foot of the stairs. The light was on again, humming softly. The basement looked normal. Just the boiler, the shelves, the old rocking chair Eleanor had hated. Arthur sat up slowly, wincing. He had no idea how he got there. The door above creaked open. He climbed the stairs cautiously, heart pounding, flashlight dead in his hand. The kitchen was quiet. The tea had gone cold. He thought about calling someone, but instead he sat at the table, staring at the basement door. It was open. The light below still burnt. That night, and every night after, Arthur left the basement dark. 2 weeks later, the neighbors noticed the mail piling up. The police found the house unlocked. The kettle was cold. The basement light was on. But Arthur was never found. Only the old flashlight, lying on the steps, its bulb shattered, the casing still warm to the touch. I don't go up there anymore. Not since the night I realized someone, or something, was already living upstairs. It started with small things. A faint bump, a shuffling noise late at night. I told myself it was just the house settling. My grandma had passed away 3 months earlier, leaving me her old 2-story cottage on the edge of town. It was cozy and quiet, a bit too quiet sometimes. But it felt like a good place to start over after my divorce. Or at least that's what I told myself. I only ever used the first floor. Kitchen, living room, bathroom, 1 bedroom. The second floor had been unused for years. I'd gone up there once to cover the furniture with sheets and never bothered to go back. The whole staircase gave off a strange feeling, like the shadows at the top stretched a little too far down, even in the middle of the day. The noises started around the second week. I'd be lying in bed, drifting off, when I'd hear the soft creak of floorboards directly above me. Just 1 or 2 steps, then silence. I didn't think much of it at first. Houses made noise, especially old ones. But this wasn't the groan of wood, it was movement. Slow, purposeful, like someone pacing, unsure of where they wanted to go. Then came the dragging. It was around 2 a.m. when I heard something scrape across the floor above me, like a heavy chair being pulled back from a table. I sat up straight, heart pounding, listening. The sound came again, louder. It moved. Whatever it was being dragged from one end of the upstairs hallway to the other. I grabbed a flashlight and crept toward the staircase. I stood there, staring up into the darkness. I didn't want to go up. Every instinct in me said to leave it alone. But this was my house. I had to be sure. The stairs creaked under my weight. The flashlight's beam shook slightly with each step. When I reached the landing, I noticed the air felt colder, stale, like it hadn't moved in days. Dust hung in the light like smoke. The hallway stretched to the left and right. 3 doors. I opened each one slowly. Nothing. Just the same furniture I'd covered months ago. Everything was exactly where I'd left it. No open windows, no signs of animals, no explanation. I told myself I was imagining things. I even laughed a little on the way back down, but the laugh felt hollow in my chest. That night, I dreamt of footsteps. They started in the hallway, then came down the stairs, one by one, growing louder until they stopped right outside my bedroom door. The next day, I nailed it shut. I didn't tell anyone. I wasn't ready to hear how I was overreacting or how I needed to move on from the past. I kept living on the first floor and ignored the upstairs completely. Until one night, when I heard the door unlock. I hadn't unlocked it. I hadn't even touched it since I nailed it shut. But at 1:13 a.m., I heard the unmistakable click of the deadbolt turning, followed by a soft thud as if the door had gently bumped open. I froze. The silence that followed was heavier than noise. It pressed in on me, thick and suffocating. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I waited, listened. Then I heard the breathing. Not mine, from the hallway. Shallow, uneven, wet, just on the other side of my bedroom door. I sat up and held my breath. The sound stopped. Then something tapped, lightly on the door. A single knock. And again. And again. 3 soft knocks. Then nothing. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I found the door unlatched. The nails still in place, but bent outward like they'd been pushed from the other side. I started staying out late after that. Took walks around the neighborhood until 3 or 4 a.m. I even slept in my car a few times, parked at the edge of the woods behind the house. It was on one of those nights, about 4:30 a.m., when I returned and noticed the upstairs window was open. I hadn't opened it. I would never open that window. But there it was, wide open, curtains fluttering in the breeze like someone had been watching from above and left in a hurry. I moved out the next day, packed a single bag and drove to a motel in the next town. I didn't even lock the house behind me. I thought I was done with it, done with the noises, the dreams, the awful, rotting presence of that upstairs hallway. But it wasn't done with me. 2 weeks later, I received a letter. No return address. Inside, a single photograph. An old black and white photo of the upstairs hallway. The curtains drawn. A chair in the middle of the hall. And sitting in that chair, a figure. Pale, slouched, with its head tilted too far to the left. Like it didn't have the strength or will to hold itself up. The back of the photo was blank, except for 3 words written in smudged ink. Come back home. I burned the photo. I moved to another city. I blocked the number of the real estate agent handling the cottage. But sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night, alone in my new apartment, I swear I can still hear footsteps above me. Slow, dragging, pacing in an endless loop. And sometimes, just sometimes, I think I hear a soft knock. It was always raining in that alley. Even on the sunniest days, something about that narrow stretch behind Hillcrest Apartments felt damp, forgotten, like the world had moved on and left it behind. Leo never walked there, not if he could help it. But that night, he was late. His phone had died. The shortcut would shade 10 minutes off his walk home. So he ducked into the alley, pulling his hoodie tight against the drizzle. The first few steps were harmless. Just wet pavement, overflowing trash bins, the buzz of a flickering street lamp. But then, he saw him, a man standing perfectly still at the far end of the alley. He wore a black overcoat and held an open umbrella. Not a cheap one, it was wide, pristine, with a curved wooden handle. His head was tilted slightly down, hiding his face. But Leo could see water dripping steadily off the rim of the umbrella, even though it wasn't raining that hard. Something was wrong with the way he stood, too still, as if he wasn't breathing. Leo slowed, heart thudding. "Hey," he called, voice low but edged with unease. "You okay, man?" No response. Leo shifted his backpack nervously. The man didn't move, not even a twitch. Leo took a step forward. The man took a step too, in perfect unison. Leo froze. That umbrella never wavered, still angled downward, still dripping, dripping, dripping. Another step. Another matching step from the man. No, Leo muttered, backing up now. But then he heard it, behind him, a splash. He spun around. Another man. Same black coat. Same umbrella. Same stance. He hadn't heard anyone approach. He was trapped. Okay, Leo said, heart pounding, hands trembling. What the hell is this? He turned slowly in a circle, trying to find an escape route. But the two men, no, not men things, moved in closer, mirroring each other like synchronized puppets. A sharp crack of thunder boomed above. Leo bolted toward a metal service door he remembered from his deliveries last summer. He rammed his shoulder into it, locked. Footsteps. Not fast, not stomping, just slow and deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. Umbrella tips clicking against the wet concrete. He yanked at the door again, desperation rising in his throat like bile. It swung open. He fell inside, slamming it shut and sliding the bolt across. Silence! Just his breathing. Harsh. Shallow. Then, faintly, the tapping resumed, now on the other side of the door. He found himself inside the basement of some old shop. Dark shelves loomed around him, filled with dusty cans and ancient mops. A weak bulb overhead flickered and buzzed, the only light. Leo tried to calm down. They were just messing with me, right? Some freaking prank. Then he heard the door handle jiggle. It stopped. Then, nothing. Leo backed deeper into the room until his back hit a shelf. He stayed there for minutes, maybe more. When he finally dared to creep back to the door and peek through the dusty window, the alley was empty again. But the ground where the men had stood was dry, bone dry. His breath fogged the glass. That's when he noticed it, a handprint on the outside of the glass. Not smeared like someone had leaned on it, but perfect. Too perfect. Like it had been pressed there with purpose. 5 fingers, and a 6th one, lower like a thumb, but smaller. A chill raced up his spine. He turned to leave. The lights went out. In total darkness, he heard a soft sound, like the fabric of an umbrella opening slowly behind him. Whoosh! He ran, crashed through shelves, nearly twisted his ankle on a mop bucket. Found stairs. Up, up, up. Burst into the shop above. Dusty shelves. Cobwebs. The place had been abandoned for years. A small radio on the counter crackled to life. Leo skidded to a halt. A voice came through, whispering, "I saw you." Leo backed away, heart hammering. "I followed you." The voice was raspy. Male, but wrong. Off. Like it was being filtered through water. "I'm still under the umbrella." Leo screamed and threw the radio across the room. It smashed into the wall. Silence. Then the sound of dripping. Drip, drip, drip. He looked up. The ceiling was dry. He looked down. A puddle was forming around his feet. He turned and ran through the front door into the street. People were walking past. Normal. Oblivious. He stumbled all the way home, never looking back. That night, he didn't sleep. Every shadow seemed to twitch. Every whisper of wind felt like breathing. The next morning, Leo stood at his window, staring into the rainy alley behind his apartment. Someone was down there, standing, black coat, umbrella open, head down, drip, drip, drip. Leo closed the blinds. He didn't leave his apartment for days. Then, one night, 3 knocks on the door. Slow, measured. He crept up, peeked through the peephole. No one there. He waited, went back to bed. Just as he drifted off, a whisper, not from outside, from inside. I'm still under the umbrella. He sat up, eyes wide. There, at the foot of the bed, wet footprints, fresh, leading into his closet. Leo stared, frozen. A slow creak came from within, the sound of something shifting. Then, whoosh, the sound of fabric. Opening, umbrella fabric. He screamed. The lights blew out. Darkness swallowed him. The next morning, his apartment was quiet. Neighbors said they heard nothing, just the sound of rain tapping on the windows. Leo was never seen again. But in the alley behind Hillcrest Apartments, if you walk at night, you'll see him, standing still, black coat, umbrella dripping endlessly. And if you look too long, he might follow you home. It started with the sound of breathing, deep, slow, deliberate. Ella froze in the hallway. She just stepped out of the shower, steam still curling around her damp skin, towel wrapped hastily across her chest. The house was empty. She knew it was. Her roommate Jess had flown out to Denver that morning for a wedding. Ella had helped her pack, so the breathing shouldn't have been there. It wasn't coming from behind her or ahead. It wasn't close. That's what made it worse. It was above her, in the attic. The old house in Fairhaven was charming by day, Victorian molding, creaky wooden floors, stained glass windows that cast rainbow light across the walls. But by night, it turned into something else. Something watchful. The shadows seemed to shift with purpose. The silence had texture. Ella had always brushed off the weird feelings. Old houses had quirks. But now, standing there in a thin towel with her wet hair dripping down her spine, she felt naked in more than one way. She stepped quietly into her bedroom, closed the door with barely a sound, and dressed quickly. Black jeans, hoodie, socks. She tied her damp hair into a messy bun, hands shaking as she moved. The breathing continued, steady and low. She could still hear it. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the house settling. It was human. She grabbed her phone and turned on the voice recorder. Then, slowly, crept into the hallway again. She didn't say anything, didn't breathe hard. Just held the phone up. The attic hatch was at the end of the hall, a square in the ceiling with a little pull cord dangling from it. That cord looked different now. Slightly. Swaying. She pressed her back against the wall and stared up at the hatch. The breathing stopped. Dead silence. Ella backed into her bedroom again and locked the door. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept her lamp on. Every sound made her jump, the heater kicking on, branches tapping the glass. At one point, she checked her recording. 4 hours of ambient noise until minute 47. A tiny mechanical creak. And then, a whisper. Not clear. Not even a word. Just the unmistakable rasp of someone exhaling close to the phone's mic. She threw the phone across the bed and turned on music to drown out the silence. Eventually, she fell asleep to the soft hum of a podcast and the comforting sound of traffic outside. In the morning, she told herself she'd imagined it. Sleep deprivation, stress, post-shower disorientation. But then she found the ladder. Not the attic ladder, a second one. Wooden, old, propped against the side of the house. Right below the attic vent. Her chest went cold. She hadn't placed it there. Neither had Jess. They didn't even own a ladder like that. She called the police. 2 officers came. They were polite, checked the attic with flashlights, found nothing. No signs of entry. They moved the ladder, said to lock the windows and call if anything else happened. She felt foolish. Until that night. At 2:14 a.m., the smoke detector in the hallway went off. Ella bolted out of bed, heart pounding. She ran into the hall, no smoke, just the shrill, ear-piercing beep echoing down the corridor. Then the attic hatch swung open. It didn't fall with a crash. It lowered, as if someone above had pulled the string and slowly, gently released it. She stood frozen beneath it, bare feet on the hardwood, eyes wide. Then the ladder descended, the built-in folding ladder attached to the hatch, sliding down one click at a time. She turned and ran to her room, slammed the door, locked it, and shoved her dresser against it. Something creaked above her, footsteps, careful, measured, and then they stopped. She called Jess in the morning and begged her to come home early. Jess was concerned but couldn't get an earlier flight. She suggested Ella stay at a hotel. Ella didn't want to leave the house alone. She set up a cheap baby monitor she'd bought years ago for house-sitting gigs, placed one part in the attic, the other in her room. All night, static, until 3:11 a.m. Then, laughter, childlike, high-pitched, giggling, but warped, slurred, like someone mimicking a child but failing. Ella sat frozen, blanket pulled to her chin, staring at the tiny speaker. The laughter faded. Then something else. A scrape, metal against wood, like something heavy being dragged. Then a whisper, closer than before. "Come up." Ella turned the monitor off. In the morning, she called her landlord, explained the situation. The man was skeptical but agreed to send someone. A handyman named Roy came by that afternoon. Gruff, older, cigarette dangling from his lips. She offered to go up first. He waved her off. "Been crawling in attics for 40 years, sweetheart." He climbed the ladder with a flashlight and disappeared into the dark. Ella waited. 5 minutes. 10. Then a dull thud above. She called his name. No response. She climbed halfway up the ladder, poked her head inside. The attic was empty. No Roy. No tools. Just dust. And handprints. Hundreds of them. Small. Child-sized. All over the walls and floorboards. She screamed. Roy's van was still in the driveway. His tools were in the hall. His phone, too, on the last step of the attic ladder, as if he dropped it just before vanishing. The police returned. Thorough search. No signs of Roy. No signs of anything. They treated her with kid gloves now, like she might be spiraling mentally. She wasn't. She knew what she saw. Jess came home the next day. Ella showed her everything. The audio recordings, the monitor, the phone. Jess believed her. That night, they slept in the same room. Lights on. At 4:03 a.m., the monitor, still set in the attic, came alive again. A low voice, not whispering this time, speaking clearly. "I don't like her." Then giggles. "I like you better, Ella." Jess ripped the monitor out of the wall and smashed it. They tried to leave the house the next morning. The front door was jammed. Deadbolt wouldn't budge. Back door? Same. They tried a window, painted shut. Ella grabbed a hammer from Jess's toolbox and smashed the glass. She pushed herself through, landing hard on the lawn. Jess followed. They didn't stop to look back. Just ran. Called a locksmith from a cafe down the street. Called the landlord. Told him they were done. That night, they stayed at a hotel. They never went back inside that house. 2 weeks later, a detective called. They'd found Roy's body in the crawlspace below the attic. Not in the attic, below it, in a section that didn't show on the house blueprints. A false ceiling, hollowed out between floors, hidden behind nailed-in planks. He'd been dead for days. Scratches all over the walls, like he'd tried to claw his way out. His eyes were missing, and his tongue was gone. But the coroner said there were no wounds around the mouth, as if it had never been there to begin with. Jess moved to another state, refused to talk about it. Ella saw a therapist, then moved into a high-rise apartment with no attic, no basement, no crawl spaces. She never listened to silence again, always kept music on. But sometimes, when the playlist ended, just for a second, she swore she could hear someone breathing above her. It was just supposed to be a quiet weekend getaway. Carmen had found the cottage through an old listing on a forgotten part of a travel site, a rustic, off-grid retreat nestled in the dense pines of Vermont. The photos showed nothing but a stone fireplace, antique furniture, and mist rolling off the lake. The price was oddly cheap. Carmen, burned out from hospital night shifts, clicked book without thinking twice. She drove up Friday afternoon. It rained the entire way, thin sheets tapping on the windshield like impatient fingers. Cell signal disappeared 30 miles before she even reached the turnoff road, a dirt path winding into endless trees. The GPS gave up, but the cottage eventually revealed itself, tucked behind a thicket of firs, just as in the photos. Inside was even more charming, worn wood floors, a potbelly stove, the scent of old cedar. But there was also something still, the kind of stillness that isn't peace. It was the hush of a room where someone has just left, or never left at all. She brushed it off. She lit a fire, poured wine, read under a blanket. By nightfall, Carmen was starting to relax. The wind outside howled like a living thing, rattling the old windows. She shut the bedroom door, crawled under thick wool covers, and was out within minutes. She woke up to a knock. 3 gentle raps, soft, deliberate, coming from the front door. Her eyes flew open, heart hammering in her chest. She checked her phone, no signal, no Wi-Fi. 3:41 a.m. Another knock. Carmen tiptoed to the living room, every board creaking like a scream. She peeked through the curtain. There was a man standing there. He wasn't trying to come in, just standing, facing the door, wearing a gray coat soaked with rain, head tilted down like he was listening to something on the other side. She backed away. Who the hell would come this far into the woods at this hour? Another knock. Not angry, not desperate, just the same steady rhythm. Then she noticed something. The man's face. Even through the fog glass, something was horribly wrong with it. His eyes, hollow, gaping sockets. No blood, no mess. Just black, clean voids, like someone had erased them. She stumbled back, knocking over a lamp. When she looked again, he was gone. Carmen didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, she convinced herself it had been a dream, or maybe a hunter. She stayed busy, cooked, wrote, sat by the lake, read a battered journal she found in the nightstand drawer. It belonged to someone named Margaret. The last few entries were frenzied, filled with phrases like, "He comes when it rains," and "Don't answer the knock." Carmen threw it in the fireplace. That night, it rained again, and the knocking came back. 3 times. Always 3. This time, she didn't go to the window. She locked herself in the bedroom and pushed the dresser against the door. But the knocks, they moved. Tap, tap, tap. Now coming from the back door. Tap, tap, tap. Now from the window near the kitchen. She heard footsteps outside. Not running, just pacing, measured, waiting. Eventually, the knock stopped, but Carmen knew he was still there. She slept at dawn, with the daylight crawling across the floor like a lifeline. That morning, she made the decision to leave early, packed her bag, loaded her car. But the tires had been slashed. Deep, deliberate gouges, all 4. No footprints around the vehicle, just mud and pine needles. She tried the emergency phone in the cabin. Dead. Of course. She was trapped. The clouds rolled in again by evening. Thunder growled low in the sky like something hungry. And Carmen, against every instinct, tried to stay calm. She lit every candle she could find. She played music from her downloaded files to drown the silence. She refused to look out the windows. But the knocking didn't come that night. Something worse did. It started with whispers, coming from behind the walls, just soft enough that she couldn't make out the words. Then the doors began creaking open, slowly, one by one. Even the ones she had bolted shut. She slammed them closed, shoved furniture against them, but they kept opening, quietly, like they were welcoming something in. The power flickered, though the house had no electricity. And in the mirror over the fireplace, she saw him, standing behind her. The man with the hollow eyes. He didn't move, didn't reach for her. He just stared. Those dark sockets pulling at something inside her chest like gravity. She turned around, no one. But when she looked back at the mirror, he was closer. She ran, out the back door, into the woods, barefoot, no flashlight. Rain sliced her skin like tiny knives. Branches grabbed at her like fingers. But she kept running until she collapsed in a hollow beneath a tree. She passed out there, cold and soaked. When she woke up, the sun was high and everything was quiet. She stumbled back to the cottage, ready to grab her bag and hike to the nearest road. But the front door was wide open. Inside, everything had been rearranged. Chairs stacked, books burned, her clothes hung from the rafters like some crude ritual. And in the center of the floor, where the rug had been, was a large circle drawn in ash and blood. In the middle of that circle was the journal, the one she had burned. She approached slowly. It was open to a fresh page, the ink still wet. It read, "You've seen him now. You'll bring the next guest." Carmen left the house, barefoot and shaking. She walked for hours, eventually stumbling onto a dirt road where a ranger found her. She didn't speak for 3 days. And when she finally told someone, they checked the coordinates she gave. But no cottage existed there. Just trees, dense and silent. But on rainy nights, some hikers claim they hear knocking coming from the woods. 3 knocks. Steady, patient, always 3.